Angel Reese walked out. Not injured, not ejected, just overwhelmed. It wasn't because of words exchanged or fouls committed. It was Caitlin Clark. Her return to peak form wasn't loud or theatrical, but it was complete. Her shooting was crisp, her decisions sharp, and her pace too much to keep up with. Teammates who once defined the rhythm of the camp were suddenly playing catch-up. Reese's exit marked more than a personal decision. It became the clearest signal that the balance of power inside women's basketball was undergoing a permanent shift.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Clark's quiet authority didn't just shine, it revealed. It pulled back the curtain on a hierarchy held together more by history than merit. As others wrestled with the implications of her ascension, Clark kept moving, unaffected. Her dominance isn't fueled by proving critics wrong or grabbing headlines. It's rooted in control of tempo, space, and the moment. The kind of leadership doesn't need permission, and it doesn't wait for consensus. It takes over, and that's exactly what happened at Team USA camp. Caitlin Clark walked into Team USA practice, and everything changed. From the moment she stepped on the court, the atmosphere shifted. Coaches stopped mid-conversation. Cameras subtly redirected. You could feel it. Her presence wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. Without saying much, she took control. The same league that once questioned her abilities was now watching in silence as she dictated the pace of practice. She moved with the calm authority of someone who didn't need to prove anything, but still did, over and over. Three-point shots from well beyond the arc, no hesitation. Fast breaks she controlled like a symphony, turning defense into instant offense. It wasn't just good play, it was domination, and the other players noticed. Caitlin didn't yell. She didn't gesture wildly, but somehow everyone followed her lead. In every scrimmage, she was the one initiating plays, calling switches, directing traffic. Her basketball IQ was on full display, and she didn't need words to show it. The silent commands came through her movements, her spacing, her decisions. Coaches pulled their clipboards in closer, players whispered on the sidelines. Caitlin wasn't just performing, she was shifting the hierarchy. What had once been an unspoken structure of seniority and spotlight was now cracked wide open by pure talent. And no one could stop it. This wasn't the first time she had a fight for recognition. After months of injury speculation and people doubting her physical readiness, Clark came into camp with something to prove, even if she didn't say it out loud. Her physicality was clear. Contact didn't throw her off. Screens didn't slow her down. She absorbed hits and responded with efficiency. No dramatics, just execution. Her body held up through high-intensity drills, and she didn't just survive the practice, she owned it. Anyone waiting for signs of weakness was met with silence and scoring. And then there was Paige Bueckers. While the media tried to build up a rivalry, what happened on that court was something else entirely. Paige saw the writing on the wall and adapted. She changed her play to work around Caitlin instead of against her. That's not weakness, that's intelligence. Bueckers didn't try to outshine Clark. She found her rhythm by feeding off of Caitlin's tempo. Where others might have been threatened, she chose synergy. It worked. The plays clicked, the spacing flowed, and the two together started looking like a problem the rest of the world wasn't ready for. Angel Reese, however, didn't take it the same way. What was once a powerful presence started to unravel. Her minutes were choppy. Her touches went down. The ball wasn't finding her anymore, and neither was the spotlight. There was visible tension. And then came the walkout. Reese left the camp early, and it wasn't due to injury or logistics. It was deeper than that. Her exit didn't just mark a personal decision. It became a symbol. One player's rise had shifted the balance enough to cause a fracture. The hierarchy had been disturbed, and the reaction was loud. Meanwhile, Clark's shooting remained untouchable. She buried threes from NBA range with ease. She attacked closeouts without hesitation. No wasted motion. The kind of shooting that made coaches rethink their offensive schemes on the spot. Every time the ball left her hands, The court seemed to freeze. Her rhythm was locked in, and the defenders could feel it. There's a difference between a player having a good shooting day and a player redefining what shooting consistency looks like. Caitlin was doing the latter. In her face. Calm, locked in, completely unfazed. No smirking, no trash talk. Just business. That kind of expression says more than a highlight reel. It's the look of someone who knows they're in control and doesn't need anyone's permission to take over. Cameras zoomed in hoping for a reaction, but there wasn't one. Just concentration. It made everything feel even more intense. She didn't need to sell the moment. She was the moment. For a few players, that realization hit differently. It wasn't just that Caitlin was playing well. It was that the system was adjusting to her, not the other way around. That left others wondering where they stood. Some adjusted. Some hesitated. The mood in practice changed. Conversations got quieter. You could feel the shift from confidence to concern. This wasn't about one scrimmage. It was about what came next. The weight of knowing things wouldn't go back to how they were. When media finally got to her, Caitlin didn't gloat. She didn't even talk about the walkout or the noise around her name. She talked about the team, the plays, the game. Direct, focused, and measured. She didn't need to defend her dominance. It was already visible. The media wanted a quote, but what they got was composure. That press conference didn't make headlines because she said something wild. It made headlines because she didn't have to. And just like that, the girl in the Indiana Fever jersey became the face of something bigger. Not just a franchise, not just a rising star. A shift in the structure of women's basketball. One camp practice was enough to make people realize what was really happening. Caitlin Clark wasn't the future. She was the now. The system, the spotlight, and the storyline had all been forced to adjust. Her leadership wasn't loud, but it was permanent. Her dominance wasn't flashy, but it was absolute. And her influence? That's not going anywhere. If you're watching this and you follow the rise of Caitlin Clark, let us know what you think. Do you see this as a real passing of the torch moment? Are we witnessing a cultural shift in the WNBA and Team USA? Drop your thoughts, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. It's easy to forget now, but not that long ago, people were asking if Caitlin Clark could even hang at the next level. She'd been through injuries, missed stretches of play, and dealt with relentless speculation from critics who weren't sure she was built for this. But her performance at Team USA camp shut all of that down instantly. Not just because she played, because she dominated. The speed, the decision-making, the ability to absorb contact, it was all there. Her footwork was clean, her timing sharper than ever. You don't come back from injury and walk into the hardest camp in the world just to survive. You come along, which is exactly what she did. And that leadership came with consequences. Angel Reese couldn't find her rhythm next to Clark. The spacing changed, the touches shifted, and so did the spotlight. What used to be her domain was now getting restructured in real time. Reese didn't just lose minutes, she lost presence. And instead of adapting, she left. Walked out. Not a word to the press, no social post to clarify. Just silence. A silence that spoke volumes. Because when a player of her stature exits like that, it's not about fatigue or injury. It's about identity. And when Caitlin Clark enters a space, identities are being rewritten. Even the veterans couldn't ignore what was happening. Sue Bird, observing from the sidelines, had been a part of camps like these for decades. She knew what leadership looked like. She'd lived it. But what she saw in Clark wasn't imitation. It was evolution. Bird saw someone taking the old blueprint and turning it inside out. No rallying cries, no ego trips. Just precision, consistency, and gravity. Clark had it, and everyone, regardless of how long they'd been in the game, had to respect it. Diana Taurasi didn't say much either, but her body language told the story. There were fewer corrections, more nods of acknowledgement. When drills transitioned into scrimmages, and Clark made plays that tore open the defense, Taurasi didn't interrupt. She let it breathe. That unspoken approval from someone like Taurasi, it matters. It doesn't mean they're best friends. It doesn't mean a torch was formally passed. But in elite circles, recognition isn't always verbal. Sometimes it's just letting the next one cook without interference. Paige Bueckers could have made this a competition. She could have tried to go shot for shot, possession for possession. But she didn't. She adjusted. She knew that fighting against the current was pointless, so she swam with it. Their on-court chemistry became one of the few stable highlights of the camp. When Bueckers cut backdoor, Clark found her. When Clark hit a logo three, Bueckers clapped her hands and ran the floor. It wasn't about ego anymore. It was about cohesion. And Paige played that role perfectly. Off the court, Clark's influence stretched into the crossover moments that the league used to fumble. She wasn't just a basketball star. She was showing up at golf events, swinging clubs with LPGA pros, and bridging fandoms like it was nothing. That cross-sport credibility isn't manufactured. It's earned. Whether she's draining threes or holding her own on the fairway, Clark doesn't chase attention. It follows her. And Team USA's media team is finally catching on. One of the more unexpected moments came during downtime, when Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull linked up. Not a super team by media standards, but in the middle of chaos, their cohesion stood out. They weren't fighting for camera time or trying to one-up each other. There was rhythm. Their court chemistry bled into casual shoot-arounds and group drills. And if you watched closely, you could see how Clark's unspoken leadership was affecting even her off-court circle. With Lexi Hull, the on-court balance was surgical. Hull knew where to be, and Clark knew when to get her the ball. It was clean basketball, precise, tactical, unselfish, the kind of pairing that coaches dream about but rarely get. Hull played her role, but it wasn't passive. She pushed the tempo when Clark needed relief, and Caitlin trusted her. That kind of mutual understanding doesn't just show up. It develops fast when players know the system is changing, and they're choosing to evolve with it. And then there was the media gold, Clark and Nelly Korda. Two generational athletes from different sports, connecting not because of a marketing gimmick, but because talent respects talent. Their quiet interaction at the crossover event showed something the league needed: authenticity. These weren't forced brand tie-ins. This was the future of women's sports linking up naturally, while the establishment scrambled to catch up. Still, not everyone handled the shift with grace. For every player who adjusted, there were two who felt left behind. The energy at camp reflected that. Uneven, quiet, a little too tense at times. Clark didn't cause that tension, but she revealed it. Because when someone comes in and immediately becomes the standard, it exposes everything. The systems built on familiarity, politics, and seniority get tested. And when they can't hold, people react. Some fall in line. Some fade away. When Sophie Cunningham got paired with Clark in scrimmages, the results were sharp. Sophie has always had grit, fearless defense, trash talk edge. But what happened here wasn't about aggression. It was about falling into place. Clark's control of tempo made Sophie look sharper, calmer. They didn't clash, they clicked. In transition, Clark fed Cunningham for clean looks. On the defensive end, Sophie started rotating with more intention. She wasn't just reacting to plays. She was reading them early, because Caitlin set the tone. There's a reason Cunningham didn't fold under the pressure of Clark's rising influence. She understood where things were headed and moved with it. Later, when Clark finally spoke to the media again, the tone was consistent, measured, humble, focused. No references to the walkout. No response to whispers. Just basketball. She deflected attention from the drama and brought it right back to the game. She talked about pace, spacing, teamwork. She made it about everyone else, even as everyone else made it about her. That's the paradox of Clark. She centers the team even when the spotlight keeps centering on her. Her control over the narrative, intentional or not, is just as surgical as her passing. And the passing is only part of it. Her shooting remains the exclamation mark. Every scrimmage had its moment. Clark pulling up from way out, dropping it clean, jogging back on defense like it was nothing. It's not just distance, though. It's decision-making. She doesn't force bad shots. She picks her moments like she's editing a highlight reel in real time. Her footwork, the release, the arc, it's all so refined that defenders hesitate. That half-second of hesitation is all she needs. Even seasoned Team USA players, people who've guarded MVPs, looked stuck when Clark rose to shoot. They knew what was coming. They just couldn't stop it. What sealed it, though, was how she absorbed contact, whether it was on screens, loose ball plays, or just over-aggressive switches. She didn't flinch. In fact, the physicality seemed to activate something deeper in her game. She didn't bark back. She didn't complain to refs. She just got up, adjusted, and ran the next play even harder. That kind of response rewrites expectations. People came in wondering if Clark could hang with top-tier physicality. They left knowing she thrives in it. Even Aya Wilson, who rarely gives away her reactions, couldn't ignore it. When Clark ran a set that left Wilson's unit scrambling, there was a visible pause, a moment of recognition. Wilson isn't easily impressed. She's been in enough of these camps to separate hype from skill. And what she saw was neither fluke nor flash. It was sustainable dominance. Clark ran the pick and roll with such precision that even the vets had to adjust. There were no nervous looks, no second-guessing. Just plays that ended in buckets. That's when you know a player isn't next. They're already here. Sue Bird, back again for another observation session, had her notepad out the whole time. She didn't say much to the cameras, but everyone knew what she was watching. The future. And what stood out wasn't just the mechanics. It was the composure. Bird made a career out of staying cool under pressure. Clark? She's already doing that in her first major camp. No panic, no spiral, just recalculating mid-play and delivering something perfect. At her next press conference, the storylines had gotten louder. Questions flew about Reese, about drama, about chemistry. But Caitlin didn't bite. She kept it strictly basketball. And in doing so, she pulled the narrative back into her control. No inflammatory quotes. No side digs. Just clarity. That's leadership. It doesn't always look like chest pounding or mic dropping. Sometimes it's just saying less and doing more, because the game says everything for you. Not everyone could handle that. As Clark kept stacking great plays, the gap widened. Not just in skill, but in mindset. You could sense it on the sidelines. Some players stayed locked in. Others looked distracted. The walkout may have been the headline, but it wasn't the only signal. There was sadness in the air, the kind that comes when you realize things won't go back to how they were. This wasn't a bad day. This was a turning point. Some players weren't just losing minutes. They were losing their place in the system. Meanwhile, Clark repped the Indiana Fever jersey like a badge of honor. Once considered a rebuilding franchise, they now had the most talked-about player in women's basketball. That jersey, once overlooked, became a symbol of the shift. And Clark wore it without fanfare. No big declarations. No showy gestures. Just excellence, over and over again. The jersey didn't make her relevant. She made it relevant. Back in scrimmage rotations, the dynamic with Paige Bueckers only got stronger. This wasn't rivalry. It was synchronization. Paige read the floor differently now. She knew when to cut, when to spot up, when to rotate, and it all flowed from Clark's tempo. They weren't fighting for top billing. They were rewriting what a functional, dual-lead backcourt looks like. And maybe that's the biggest lesson from this camp. Dominance doesn't have to isolate. It can elevate, if you're willing to move with it. By the time Media Day wrapped, Caitlin Clark had barely broken a sweat, on or off the court. She didn't give them the drama they came for. No sound bites on Angel Reese. No subtle digs. Just basketball. Just focus. And that's what made it sting for some. Because silence from Clark doesn't mean weakness. It means control. She's not here to feed narratives. She's here to dictate them. She didn't take the bait because she didn't have to. Her game did all the talking. Diana Taurasi, one of the fiercest competitors in the sport, wasn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. During some of the final runs, she jumped in. The interactions were subtle. Brush screens, split-second switches, but they were charged. Taurasi didn't go easy, and Clark didn't flinch. There was one possession where Taurasi closed out hard on a corner three, and Clark still sank it. No stare down, no celebration, just the quiet understanding between two eras. You couldn't script it better. One legend recognizing another, without either of them saying a word. That shot was just one of many. Whether it was off the dribble, coming off a curl, or spotting up in transition, Clark was automatic. The kind of accuracy that forces defenses to stretch way beyond comfort zones. It wasn't showy. It wasn't desperate. It was efficient, cold, and confident. At this level, most players are good. But Clark made it look easy. Her release was the metronome of camp. Predictable, consistent, unbothered. And then there was Sue Bird. She didn't say much to the media, but internally, word was she'd already named Caitlin Clark as the centerpiece of the future. It wasn't about hype. It wasn't about clicks. It was about what happens when one player walks into a practice and reshapes the entire ecosystem. That's not potential. That's power. If you've made it this far, you already know Caitlin Clark isn't just another prospect. She's a recalibration, a shift in what leadership looks like. If you're watching this and feel the same, drop your thoughts below. Are we witnessing the real next era unfold? Hit like, share with someone who still doubts her, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.